everybody. Welcome to another episode of Purple Insider, a very special episode. Matthew Coller here, and I am here with the co-captain of the U.S. wheelchair rugby team, Chuck Aoki, also maybe the world's most gigantic Minnesota Vikings fan. I am in Ann Arbor, Michigan, so that means I flew here just to talk to Chuck. There's an article also coming out on his journey as well, so make sure that you keep an eye out for that over at purpleinsider.com. But we are in your living room here. Open concept for those fans of House Hunters, but I am absolutely thrilled to be here with you, and I am incredibly excited because the Paralympics are coming up. Once every 4 years, you get a shot to chase gold. So why don't we start out right there with how you feeling, man? Like, how's your summer? How exciting is this for you to have another chance? You have, is it two silvers? And a bronze, and this is another chance to chase gold. So how you feeling?
Well, at the moment, obviously, the highlight of my summer is being on the Purple Insider podcast, and then we'll just see where we go from here. It's
gold would be secondary.
Hard to imagine we could get much higher than this. No, feeling excited. I've just wrapped up a training camp with the team a few days ago. We've got one more to go. We will leave for Paris on August 20th. So a little bit of time to go until that date, but no, feeling good. It's one of those things you work until the last possible minute so that when you get to the games, you just sort of give it all you've got. So team is feeling good. We've got a balance of 6 first-time players, 6 veterans who've been to at least 3 games. So really interesting mix of sort of youth and experience that I think they'll be exciting. I'm excited to see what the team can do, but it's going to be a battle. It's not easy. They don't just give it to you. You have to earn it. So it's gonna be good. But excited, really pumped for it. And yeah, it's my 4th game. So I've done this a few times before, but it doesn't stop getting exciting. It doesn't stop being something you really you get a feeling in your stomach that's not like anything else for it.
Well, I definitely want to go through the sport for those who have never watched it before. The last Olympics was the last time I watched it because of you, because you are a Purple Insider loyalist. Oh, yeah. And so we have talked many, many times, and I was like, man, I got to see Chuck play. And what you don't tell people is that you're like Randy Moss out there. So I want to get into that, but also I've been seeing you everywhere. Like, you went on Kelly Clarkson's show and you actually made Kelly Clarkson cry in talking about Tokyo. So what has it kind of been like to you're on commercials, you've been doing a lot of interviews and really carrying the torch for this sport and this Paralympics?
Yeah, so I guess I'll do that part first, and then we can dig into the wonderful sport that is wheelchair rugby, aka murder ball. But no, it's been exciting. I started my career the London Paralympics for my first games, which is 12 years ago now, and if you had told me 12 years from now, then it's like, oh, by the way, you're gonna be in national commercials, you're gonna be on Kelly Clarkson, you do all these things. I was, oh, okay, like sure, whatever you say. But it's happened. It's been here. We've seen incredible growth in the Paralympic movement. We've seen incredible growth in sort of awareness and interest and excitement behind it. I think you referenced Tokyo. I appreciate you watching, but unfortunately, a lot of people weren't able to watch. It was tough. It was obviously COVID, a lot of things happening. It was a tough games for a lot of reasons. And we're just excited to really get back to the spirit and the energy of the games. The passion's going to be there. People are excited. It's been amazing to see the growth. I think you've seen so many different brands and partners come on board and just media interest, to talk about these things. And so I'm excited. I can't wait to see. It's been overwhelming at times. Certainly I look at my schedule. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to fit all this in? How am I going to get all this done? Because at the end of the day, without the sport, it doesn't really matter what all this stuff is. You still have to compete and perform at a high level. So it's been a challenge sometimes for sure to balance all that. And I have a new appreciation for when professional athletes talk about, well, it's just tiring. Some people are like, how tiring can it be? And it's like, okay, it's not working in a coal mine, of course, but it's tiring. You're on the road a lot. You're waking up in different cities. You don't know where you're going. It's exhausting, but I'm excited to be doing it.
And sometimes on television, unlike this great podcast, you fly all the way to, was it L.A. is where Kelly Clarkson is? Or in New York. Okay, so you fly all the way from Michigan to New York, and you're on for 3 minutes, and then you're just done, and I guess you do other stuff. But television kind of works that way. But you talk about the travel, that's a lot to do just to go on for a couple of minutes. But I did want you to tell the story, though, that actually did make Kelly Clarkson cry. Because, look, since you've been gone, it was a banger right about the time I was graduating in high school. I don't know how many times I listened to that show, so I'm a fan, Kelly Clarkson. But actually, it was a great story that you told about being the flag bearer right in Tokyo and what that meant to you. So please tell our audience.
For sure. Yeah, it went, as you said, it's totally worth it. I think I'd fly halfway across the world to hang out with Kelly Clarkson for 5 minutes. So, no, it really was. So, something that people I think maybe know about the Olympics and Paralympics. There's the opening ceremony. It's how kind of the games kick off, right? And that starts with a parade of nations. Every single nation comes in, and each nation selects a person to carry the flag. Literally lead them into. I think it's probably a military thing traditionally, which is like the flag bearers when he leads the charge. You're there. And so for Tokyo, I was, amazingly, wonderfully selected to be the flag bearer for Team USA, which is just this incredible honor, this incredible privilege, because there are so many great athletes who've been around and done so many things and been around for longer than I have, sort of have all kinds of amazing stuff. And they picked me, they picked me to be the flag bearer. And the reason that meant so much to me and why it was so exciting is because, my family's history in this country is a little checkered, I guess, to say the least. I'm Japanese American. Last name's Aoki. It's a very Japanese name. And during World War II, my great-grandparents, grandparents, virtually everyone on my father's side of the family was actually interned during World War II. And they hadn't committed any crime. They were just Japanese. And in that time, the United States said, we're going to lock everybody up. This is what we're going to do. It was not the right decision, of course. My grandpa actually ended up enlisting in the Army Reserves after. So anyway, very loyal to this country. But either way, that's not really what matters. What matters is it was an unjust thing to do. But what was just really cyclical and incredible for me is that, that was only 2 generations ago that this country had put my family in prison, essentially. And then 2 generations later, here I was leading Team USA out. It was just, it's one of those amazing stories that obviously you don't have to want to forget history, and you don't want to say transgressions that happened are like, oh well, it's a long time, it's okay. It's you still remember it, but it's incredible to see we have come a long way in this country in the way we view people, and we still have work to go in many areas, of course. But I think that was a really special thing to have and to sort of reflect on as an athlete, and really my journey and my identity as, and yes, I'm an athlete, I'm a disabled person, I'm Japanese American, I have all these identities, and it was really cool. And I think, of course, to do it in Tokyo is sort of this cherry on top, like, oh, this is where my family is from, historically in life, was a really, really, really cool, really special moment. When I was, it was, unfortunately, of course, we marched into an empty stadium, which is no one's fault, just the way the world was. But it was still a special moment to get to share with my team and Team USA.
Yeah, it's such a great story, and it's so much part of your DNA, and to be able to do it there, I mean, that would be a great honor either way. But to have that to be so steeped in your family's history is incredible. So let's talk about the sport a little bit here. And you have been playing this since you were a little kid, but I love the story of how, because you and I have known each other for a while. So I know your story and I've watched your interviews and so forth, but obviously my audience has not. But how you discovered wheelchair rugby. And I would highly suggest the movie Murder Ball, which goes into where it came from, the roots, who plays it, and so forth. But you first start off with basketball and then found yourself, and there's going to be a connection here with football eventually, to be aggressive and enjoy physical contact. So explain how you came across wheelchair rugby and why it fits in your athletic skill set.
Yeah, so you referenced it. I grew. So I'm from Minnesota. I don't think we said that.
Well, you said that you're a humongous Vikings fan, but we are in Michigan right now. So
Vikings fans are everywhere. We're worldwide, baby. We're global. So from Minnesota, from Minneapolis, and so I grew up there. Loving sports, of course. But I had to start using a wheelchair when I was about 10 years old, full time, and my parents sort of said, okay, you're going to be active. You're going to play sports. Like, it's going to happen. So I tried a lot of things. Basketball is the first sport that I realized, like, okay, I like this. I learned early on I was a ball sport kind of person. I wasn't a swim as fast as I can kind of person. I wasn't a push a chair as fast as I can from a straight line person. I was like, I got to have a ball. I got to be doing stuff. So I grew up playing basketball. I loved that sport. But then it was actually Murder Ball that I saw and was like, oh my God, there's a sport where people can crash into each other and talk trash and smack. Like, this looks awesome. Like, I want to try this sport, of course. So I did. I showed up to a practice in Golden Valley, Minnesota. Courage Kenny. Shout out to Courage Kenny. I did a practice there. I got absolutely annihilated for 2.5 hours straight. Like, it's full contact, right? So I got beat up for 2 hours straight. And as those things naturally go, I fell in love with it instantly, because that's what you do when you play a physical sport where you get beat up, right? But yeah, I fell in love with it. There's nothing else quite like it when you have a disability. No other sport that just lets you get out there and just sort of go for it. I think, and not unfairly so. Sometimes you get, when you're disabled, you're sort of treated with kid gloves and, we got to be careful. And again, that's valid in a lot of circumstances. But this was the first time I was like, oh, no, you're just going for it. Like, it doesn't matter what you think. You are getting out there and you can't back down. It's like in football. If you're out there and worried about when you're going to get hit, you've already lost the plot, right? You've already lost the game. So I saw a murder ball. I showed up to a practice when I weighed probably 140 pounds soaking wet. And they were like, you want to play? I said, yeah. They're like, okay, here we go. And that was, 17 years ago now. And here I am. Still going.
And it really resonated with you, but also you realized right away that you were pretty good. So what does the path look like from just trying a sport for the first time to now Olympics, again, Paralympics again, just how did you get from point A to point B?
Yeah, so, I had a lot. What helped is that, for folks who probably wouldn't be as aware, wheelchair sports, we use different wheelchairs. Like, you're probably familiar with the hospital wheelchair. You've probably seen wheelchairs people use everyday life. The ones we use for sports are very different. The wheels are set wider. They're basically built to go fast and turn fast, but they're a lot bigger. And so playing wheelchair basketball gave me a lot of what we call chair skills. So I was pretty good at manipulating the chair, turning the chair, going quick up and down. What I was really bad at in basketball was shooting the ball, which
really? Okay.
I am told that is important to be really successful.
Seems that way. You can be just a rebounder or something.
I say Udonis Haslem made a career out of not being a great shooter, but I also am not quite as big as Udonis Haslem or Rudy Gobert.
I can help you with that. Elbow in. Yeah. Just get that elbow in.
I tried. When you can't feel your hands, it's actually very tricky to shoot consistently the same way every time. So I was really good at a lot of things, but I was kind of missing this one critical skill, which I could still contribute. As we know in basketball, there's a place for the gritty, just defender type. But wheelchair rugby, I found when it was like, okay, so I get to go really fast, I get to hit people, which I don't really get to do in basketball. I have to pass the ball, which I was pretty good at passing, and I don't have to shoot. It's like, oh, this might be the sport for me. Right, exactly. And so I had almost a decade of experience playing wheelchair basketball. So I had those chair skills developed, and then I showed up to the sport, and I was I worked hard. My team was ranked. My wheelchair basketball team was ranked number 1 in the country at the time. So we were really good. Yeah. So I had to work really hard to stay and compete. And I was a starter on that team. Again, I wasn't the main scorer, but I was out there. So I had to work hard. So I brought a lot of physical skill to the game. And then on top of that, like I said, it eliminated the one thing I wasn't very good at. So I started playing, and the team we were kind of an up and coming team. We had a guy named Joe Delagrave, who is a longtime U.S. teammate, now the head coach actually of the team. So my coach, which has been kind of a wild experience. He was on the team with me, and so we kind of grew up together playing in that development level. And he and I we were playing, there's 2 divisions in the U.S. There's Division 1, Division 2. There's Division 3 now, actually. We were Division 2, so the lower division, but we took the team to the national championship for Division 2 our first year, and no one had ever heard of us. Like, who are these? Where did these guys come from? So we showed up, and we didn't win that year. We probably had a little too much hubris. We made it, we got this, and then we were beat by a much more experienced team. But then essentially what happens, and this is true of a lot of Paralympic sport, interestingly enough, is that there's not really okay, now you've done this, you now go into the talent pipeline for this, or the development program for this. It's sort of like you show up to nationals, the head coach of the national team's there coaching his club team, other national team players are there playing for their teams. They look around and kind of say, anything interesting? And they're like, we got this kid from Minnesota who seems like he might be good. And, they watched me, and they were like, oh, yes, he does seem pretty good. So I got invited to go to tryouts that what would have been December of 2008 for the national team, and I showed up there and again did pretty well. So I pretty much made the team my first attempt, which is pretty unusual. Again, I like to say it's not as simple as I just picked up this sport and was good at it instantly. Right. Like I spent plenty of time being bad at wheelchair basketball and learning the skills of that. before I just showed up to this other thing. It was like, it just happened that a lot of the skills transferred well.
Right.
Which stayed in time. But so I made the team in 2008, and here we are in 2024, and I've been on the team ever since.
The way that rosters are designed is different levels of disabilities, and there's a point system, right? Maybe you can explain just your disability and where you fit into that system.
Yeah. So very briefly on the system, every player is assigned what we call a classification score. In wheelchair rugby, it ranges from 0.5 to 3.5 with half-point increments. So 0.5, 1.0, 1.5, etc. 4-on-4 on a court, the 4 players total cannot exceed 8. That's sort of
so you can do it different ways.
You can do it a lot of different ways. So you could do, for example, 2 3-point players, then 2 1-point players. You could do 4 2-point players, all over the place. So with my ability, I have pretty significant impairments in my hands, but I'm pretty significant in my legs. But I've got some core function, a little bit of leg function, and so I fall on the higher side of the classification. So I'm a 3.0 in wheelchair rugby. So I'm the second from the highest.
Right.
So I've got a lot of function. So I do a lot of the ball handling, a lot of the sort of coordinating, passing, things like that. And so with me, if I'm going to play, sort of like, great, awesome. If you're going to play, you're going to have a low point player to go with me, just by definition. And so one of our main lineups on the U.S. team, for example, is a 3, a 2.5, a 2.0, and a 0.5. And so we call that a balanced lineup because we've got 3 players who handle the ball a lot, 1 player who is more of a defensive kind of specialist, we like to say, an offensive picker, kind of like a lineman in some ways. But other countries will run what we call like a high-low lineup. They'll run 2 3.5s, so the highest you can possibly have, and 2 0.5s, the lowest you can possibly have. And so there's a lot of strategy that goes into deciding what you should do, where you should put people, and it's a huge component that people don't always realize about Paralympic sport in particular because, again, I always say the equivalent I say to this, it would be like if in the NBA, I said, okay, you can have a 7-foot player. That's fine, no problem. But if you're going to play a 7-foot player, you've got to play someone who's under 5'6".
Right.
And it's sort of like, huh? But then people hear this, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Because right now, the reality is you'd have to be, how many people under 5'6" have there been? Like 2 or 3 ever?
Muggsy Bogues
and Nate Robinson's.
Yeah, Spud Webb was 5'7", I think.
Yeah, so under 6 feet is virtually impossible, right? And so it's the same concept because, in Paralympic sport, the reality is you can't control your level of function necessarily. And so that way you're competing against, when you're trying to make a team spot, you're competing against other people with the same function as you, or at least in the same band of function. It's not like the guy with a C6 spinal cord injury who's paralyzed from the chest down and can only do his biceps, so he can only really do this. He's not competing against me. He's competing against other people like that. And likewise, I'm only competing against people who are in the same sort of band as I am in.
So it makes it for coaching and roster design another wrinkle that you have to consider, which I think is fascinating because some teams take different approaches with the points. It's almost like those internet things where build this team for $500. That's how your Paralympic team is put together in the same kind of way. But your specific disability, kind of explain that.
Yeah, so the baseline, I just don't have any sensation from my elbows down and my knees down. So at a baseline, I just don't feel anything. What that leads to, though, essentially is injuring myself because I can't feel it. So when I was 6 or 7, I broke my leg, didn't feel it, walked on it. Not good for a leg, believe it or not.
No, it's not. Yeah, definitely not.
Don't do that at home, kids. So that was essentially my childhood growing up, was injuring my legs, trying to walk around, slowly sort of deteriorating them to the point that I can still walk a little bit. But by and large, use a wheelchair to get around because it's just what preserves what I have left. The flip side to that then was, as I started to use a wheelchair, my hands would get cuts and infections, and I would lose parts of my fingers, which I always say the whole silver lining to all of this is that to be eligible for wheelchair rugby, you have to be impaired in all 4 limbs. And without that, I wouldn't be eligible for wheelchair rugby. So it kind of comes full circle. But yeah, essentially at its core, I just don't have any sensation. And, it's interesting. And football players maybe would disagree with this. Pain is actually a really good thing for our humans in some ways because it prevents us from doing things that would lead to further deterioration of our function. And so for me, it's like I don't have the pain. I don't have this heat, cold sensation. So I have led to injury. I've gotten, and admittedly, as a younger person, I was perhaps a little more careless than I should have been with how I sort of lived my life. But I've stabilized now. Like I said, I'm pretty level with my function where I am now. And like I said, it's allowed me to play this sport that's incredible. So it's sort of one of those, a door closed but a window open type things.
So I watched you a lot in Tokyo, tried to catch every game. and you score a lot. You score a lot because we would talk Vikings and we would message you, you'd ask questions for the mailbag and so forth. And I knew you were on the team, but until I actually watched you, I didn't realize how fundamental you are on the team. But give everybody a sense of what your role is and how it works. Like, how do you explain to people when they say, what is it that you do? Oh, well, what do you say?
Yeah, well, I say, well, I play wheelchair rugby, and they go, oh, wheelchair rugby. So it used to be called murder ball. They go, oh, yeah, oh, wow, okay, wow, that's pretty wild. It really is unlike any other sport out there. It's really a mix of a lot of things. I meet people who are knowledgeable about rugby, able-bodied rugby, and they go, well, how do you do this? And I go, well, we don't really do that. And they go, oh, okay. So it's really a mix of wheelchair basketball. It's got a little bit of hockey elements to it. It's got some rugby elements to it. The way I always describe people is, football, you can run in the end zone and catch the ball. In rugby, you have to carry the ball across. We have to carry the ball across to score. So there's some similarities. But I tell people it's high, at first it looks like just high-speed bumper cars. Chairs are crashing, people are flying, bodies are everywhere, balls are going around. But then the more you learn about it, there's actually quite a bit of tactics to what's going on. The main goal of the game is to literally, all you're trying to do is cross, we call it the try line, with the ball in your possession. Seems pretty simple, and you do it within 40 seconds. But there's a lot of strategy going sort of back to the team makeup that you talked about that matters. So I think a reference, we run what we call a balanced lineup. So that means there's 3 people on the court who, if they have the ball, we're like, oh, no worries, they've got it. They'll push. If they get stopped, they'll pass the next guy. Versus some teams, like we said, run these more high-low lineups where they have 2 guys who they really only want those 2 to have the ball as much as possible. And so they'll run a lot more like pick and rolls. Mm-hmm. So, and we run some too, don't get me wrong, but they'll do a lot more like, okay, they got a defender. All right, we're going to come hit this guy off so he can get free. This person's the low point player is going to pick this person so they can get around it. There's a lot more sort of picking and maneuvering and then just going really fast as opposed to sort of methodical, okay, get the ball from here to here, now from here to here, now from here to here, and off you go. Or from here to here, here to here, off you go. So it's an interesting combination of, like I said, a lot of different sports. There's a little bit of football elements in that each play starts with an inbound. It's people are moving, quote unquote, pre-snap, but the person with the ball is just sort of sitting there. So it's really an interesting mix. And I appreciate you watching, first of all, but I think, folks, you almost have to watch it to really get a grasp of, I can kind of see the different tactics evolving again. At first, it just looks like a bunch of people in wheelchairs crashing into each other. Yeah. But the more you watch it, the more you realize, he hit that guy, not this person, because he knew he was going to catch the ball, and he didn't worry about this guy catching the ball or something like that.
And there is a score clock. You have to score in 40 seconds, which keeps it moving back and forth. And no, I really enjoyed the high-paced nature of it, where it does move very quickly, which you explained to me earlier that there was a rule change where it used to look like the Harvard offense.
There used to be no shot clock, right. And so it was like pass. Right. They say basketball before the shot clock looked like it was James Naismith era basketball, I think, where it was like pass again.
Yes.
Pass again. Yeah.
Where there was no 3-point line and there was no shot clock. Yeah. Although in Minnesota, you know this, that the high school basketball didn't have the shot clock until recently.
Until like 2 years ago.
Teams would get ahead and then just pass it around. What?
I know.
Anyway, so that must have been less entertaining than it is now, but it moves quickly.
Yeah.
When you got a breakaway, this happens to you quite a bit, is what I noticed. You feel like Randy Moss? Is that who you're thinking of? When you have a breakaway, the ball's coming your way, you're looking back to catch it. Are you Randy Moss?
I think when I make a really cool catch, I do feel like a good receiver sometimes. Like sometimes I'll stick my hand out and pull something out. I'm like, wow, that was pretty cool. Like,
a little Chris Carter action?
I can't feel my hands, and I did that. A little Carter, a little Jack. I do think actually sometimes when I will admit in the moment, you're more thinking kind of about the next play because the sport's very important. But I think when you go back and watch, it's not quite the same as getting absolutely crunched after you make a catch in front of people. But there are times where I'll catch it and then immediately get hit by 2 people. I'm like, that is kind of like when you go across the middle and just squeeze it and you have to hold on. You don't have a choice. I don't. It's more of just the cool catches. You feel you're like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is because that you are a huge Minnesota Vikings fan, and you were 7 years old in 1998. Yeah. So that's maybe a little early for you there with the memories. But growing up in Minnesota and developing your Vikings fandom, and what we were talking about a little earlier before we started recording is just you're not just a casual. You don't just sort of keep in contact a little with the Vikings and see them on Sunday. You are truly obsessed with the Minnesota Vikings. Every roster detail, you read all the Purple Insider articles and so forth. Why, as you have kept up with your journey here, which takes up a huge amount of your time, have you still made as much space as you do for the Vikings in your life?
Well, I think like we said, I'm from Minnesota. That's home, and it's always been home. And I've lived a lot of other places. I've enjoyed my travels, and I enjoy doing the things I get to do. But I think, following Minnesota, and I should say Minnesota sports too, although the Vikings probably rise to the top. Following Minnesota sports has always given me that little tie to back home. Right, it's always felt like I always text my buddies, like what's going. Like you can't really know, hey, what's going on, and you check in on them, but it's not quite the same as like, hey, I'll see you this weekend. It's like, oh, see him every few months at best, right? And so I think it's always been just it's my tie to home, and it's always been, that little connection I have with friends or with my dad or whoever about, oh yeah, the Vikings are doing this, doing that, and also I think when I really fall in love with something, whether it's rugby, whatever it is, and Vikings are in this realm, you want to know everything. I do, at least. I want to know every detail. I want to understand, because I think, having spent a lot of time in sports in my life, there are interesting details to everything, right? Whether it's how do we evaluate players? How do you decide which players can be great? How do you decide that was a good performance, that was a bad performance, outside of the obvious sort of situations, and how do you do that? How do you think about who the fourth, fifth string person's going to be? How do you decide to come up with that? How do they think about that? I think that's one of the most fascinating things to me. And then, of course, just the sheer complexity of the way modern NFL offenses work, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much depth and complexity to it. As a athlete, I always find it interesting, like pushing myself forward. And so, I'll watch how linemen pass off a stunt, mm-hmm. right? Because it's essentially like defending a pick and roll. It's the same concept. It's obviously different because they're standing, but you can watch ways of how they get their leverage point, how their balance matters, how their angle matters a lot. And I try to learn something from it too. And I think that's a big part. But overall, it's just, Minnesota is home, and I bleed purple and gold. And so I think that I want to follow it. I want to know every detail. And that's the beauty of, places like Purple Insider and the explosion we've had in development of media like this is you can learn everything. You can learn about these things and really think about them intellectually too, and not just have to say, well, he scored 20 touchdowns, he's amazing. It's like, well, yeah, we didn't need that, but what can we actually learn about, why Patrick Jones is really not very good? It's because this, or this. Or we can say, oh, Andre Carter is maybe doing a little something interesting. I find that fascinating.
Poor Patrick Jones. He didn't do anything. He just got a drive-by.
He didn't do anything but get a PFF grade below, 50, right?
It quite a bit below, unfortunately. I think that he, in a better role, would probably be okay, more of an average player, but he was asked to play so many snaps. Just to clarify, in case Patrick Jones sees the interview and is unhappy that he got slammed right there. But with the Vikings in particular, what I know about you is that you really have a deep appreciation for underdog stories. And I think that this comes from, for you, that your sport is wrought with underdog stories. There's a lot of people who have gone through very traumatic things in their lives and used sports. And my wife is actually going to be broadcasting Paralympic basketball, wheelchair basketball on both the men's and women's side. And she's reading about how a lot of these people became disabled. And some of the stories are just absolutely remarkable from things that they overcame to be here. And I think that is a connection with you with certain players, that you know how difficult it is. And also, you being an athlete at your level, know how many people try and cannot get to that level. So if you are the fourth string running back and you came from Tulsa or something, how did you overcome all that? And it's never endingly fascinating. So I think we agree on this, but you are going to have to explain your obsession with Matt Asiata. This is when you told me that your favorite player was Matt Asiata, I was like, excuse me?
I don't think I should have to defend that in the slightest to the Purple Insider community, but I will. I think
it's unusual. I would say it's unusual.
I would say he's one of my favorites for sure. So I'm trying to, as I get older, I have a hard time remembering the exact years, but there was the one year Matt Asiata kind of burst onto the scene, so to speak, and was like this little, I've always really appreciated, for the lack of a better way to put it, the bowling ball running back. I obviously enjoy all of them. The shiftiness is great, things like that. But the bowling ball who just sort of like goes out there and just somehow just rumbles forward. They're not going to blow by you. They're not going to juke you. They just run, and they just keep running, and they just sort of keep going. And it's really remarkable to watch them keep moving forwards. And I'm amazed at. And Matt Asiata was the first one I remember doing this. This first sort of bowling ball, I remember just, oh, he's just still going. Oh, he's just still going. Plus, he scored like 3 touchdowns in a game, which is incredible. And I think as a kid, I was like, wow, that was amazing. Wow, he's going to do that all the time. And fun fact, he did not do that all the time.
He did not.
But I really enjoyed it. He seemed like a pretty good guy, too. He seemed very, friendly and just affable. But something about the bowling ball running back has always been a favorite of mine. And I do think the bowling ball is kind of going out, unfortunately. We don't have as many bowling balls these days. But no, I don't feel I need to defend Asiata fandom, but I will happily do so.
I just mean that if you asked 1,000 people for their top 5 Minnesota Vikings, I think you might be the 1 out of 1,000 who says Matt Asiata that's not related to him. I believe it was 2014 when he and Jerick McKinnon split the role after Adrian Peterson, let's not talk about it, and all that thing that happened there. But
Thunder and lightning, baby. Thunder and lightning.
Ish. But this is somebody who probably had almost no chance to carve out an NFL career and found a way to do it in this specific role. And while he was not a superstar, he was a contributor and could do a lot of different things for them and had a lot of toughness and grit, which you and your sport requires a lot of that toughness in order to do it. So here's the thing. Every week on the written side, on the newsletter side, we have a Friday mailbag. And I'll tell you what shows up in my DMs pretty often from Chuck, some sort of Friday mailbag question. So I'm here. I came all the way to your house. What do you got? What do you want to ask? Exclusive, just to you, mailbag questions, whatever is on your mind about the Minnesota Vikings, you can ask me.
Oh, my gosh.
And actually give your own feedback to my answer, which usually you just read my answer.
Right. Oh, okay. I was going to say I can answer my own question.
Yeah, you can.
That's kind of odd. Well, I guess really for me, I think the question that is currently, because, we're in that sort of between things regard. I'm curious to know, and this will be a little more, I usually put a lot of thought into my questions, by the way. I really,
I noticed
something concrete. I think the biggest one for me right now is where do you think this defense is going to fall? Because they've added players who are good. I think that's just a fact. They lost a couple who were good too, but they
Danielle Hunter specifically. Yeah,
but they added lots of good players, and I think you talk about and you hear this a lot. It's like defense is variable, and they were I think good for some of last year, but then not very good last year, which maybe correlates with quarterbacks they played. Weird how that works. But I am curious where you think the defense is going to fall, just based on the talent collection, and then of course that Brian Flores knows what he's doing.
He's good at his job.
Yeah.
I would say that will depend entirely on the health of their secondary. Because if you're talking about Shaq Griffin, Byron Murphy Jr., and Mekhi Blackman, they are going to have to hold down significant roles. And if you can't cover people, you can't do anything defensively. And we saw this last year when Byron Murphy went down, they were a totally different defense. Right. Even, I think it was in the Cincinnati game, he got hurt and he kept playing, but wasn't the same. And then they took advantage after that, and it was never the same, the defense. And even though he didn't have the highest PFF grade, that was a starter, and it was someone who could handle a lot of different things at at least average to above average level. And when he went down and it was a Caleb Evans having to take over that big role, it was just not the same at all. And that's the biggest weak point, because if you go through the other parts of this team, like the defensive line, interior D-line is a major concern, but they can rush the passer off the edges. They've got tons of versatility. They have 3 safeties who are excellent. They have now 2 linebackers. I don't think people realize how good Blake Cashman was.
Right.
They did not sign him because he's one of us. They signed him because he was in the top 10 by PFF last year. He has to stay healthy, though, because the next guy down is Kamu Grugier-Hill, who has been a journeyman kind of backup special teamer type. That guy's not supposed to play 500 or 600 snaps. The health of Jonathan Grenard, the health of Andrew Van Ginkel, these guys have all been banged up throughout their careers. If everyone were to stay relatively healthy, and we're not talking about getting into the deep depth of this unit, I think they should be somewhere between 10th and 14th. That it's not quite a team that is ready to get to the elite level. And they do have a very difficult quarterback schedule. You go through, there's a lot of proven quarterbacks, which is kind of how I look at it, is how much can you rely on here? But with Flores' brainchild, the amount of different things he can do with people they brought in, like Andrew Van Ginkel, who again was just absolutely excellent last year. If these guys are healthy and they're playing a lot, then I would say fringe top 10 defense.
Yeah. I think, and to answer my own question and to
say,
respond to you.
Do we agree?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I've always, I've always found the coverage versus pressure. I forget what
pass rush,
pass rush debate really interesting, because and it's like the meme of, what is the meme of, where it's like when the Bengals were drafting either Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell, is like, well, if no one's in front of him, he can't throw to Jamar Chase at all. It's like, well, turns out he can actually.
Yeah.
But I've always leaned, and I've come to trust my intuition on things a lot, not all the time, but like my intuition was always that pass rush mattered more. That was just my intuition. It was like, it made sense to me that if within, what is it, like a quick pressure is like under 2 seconds, right?
Yeah.
If someone's in your face in under 2 seconds, that is going to make a difference. Now, and I still believe it does make a difference, but I think the reality too is quick pressure rates for good players is what? Like it's not actually all that high when you consider how many snaps happen in the game.
Correct. So if you're talking about immediate pressure under 2 seconds, that's going to ruin every quarterback all the time.
Doesn't matter.
History
Peyton Manning can't do anything.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we saw that in the Giants and Patriots Super Bowl with Tom Brady. But pressure that's more around 2.5 to 3.5 seconds is often on the quarterback and can be prevented if the quarterback is good enough. And that's how good quarterbacks have lower pressure and sack rates. So I think what you're getting at is, even if they have these players who create pressure, unless they create insane instant pressure all the time, which is not realistic, the corners are going to have to do their jobs.
Exactly. And I think that's why I've come now to, I still believe that quick pressure is the best, pretty much still the single best thing you can do as a defense, as far as I'm aware. But beyond that, the corners have to be able to stand up, and Shaq Griffin is apparently going to be like, he's going to solve the defense. He's going to solve the defense.
That's what they're telling us.
Which if we consider a weak link system and you upgrade one of your weak links to a pretty good player, here we go.
I've always thought that the gap between average and great is similar to average and awful. So if you go from awful to average, that is a massive upgrade. Not quite in the same impact way as going to greatness, but that it matters a lot to be average. That's not like that's a compliment in a lot of ways to an NFL player. The question is really, can Shaq Griffin be average? When early in his career he was at times, but he was also cut from his team last year in the middle of the season, which is not a huge selling point to can he be average.
It doesn't fill you with confidence, but at the same time, it's a situation, I think we talked about this, where if you believe in the organization that said, this is a good person for us, we think this is good, and obviously they didn't have their pick of any cornerback they wanted, they had to pick what was available, but if they identified and said, this is a player we want, it's at a certain point as a fan, you have to say, all right, these people do know more about this than I do, particularly what makes a cornerback really, really good.
Right.
I have to trust that they know what will make a cornerback good, and trust that they just, let's be real. Brian Flores put together a defense last year at some point that really didn't have anybody particularly greater than Danielle Hunter on it, and they were really good.
Right. So I think trust for Brian Flores specifically is more. Yeah. It kind of depends on who we're talking about, because maybe Ed Donatel would get a little less trust in this situation. Okay, one more. Give me one more. Give me one more mailbag question. Okay.
Wow. Well, that was the high level.
That was a good one.
Yeah. Well, let's see here. What I guess
you got to ask something about the quarterback, don't you?
Well, okay. Yeah. I guess what I am still wondering about the quarterback is what. I'm trying to think of this. Obviously, Sam Darnold to me is the fascinating example, right? Because this is a player who has been really, really bad, like just objectively really bad outside. Mm-hmm. But you've obviously watched a lot of his tape. You've kind of gone back and looked at him. What have you seen from the in the tape that's existed that makes you say that, okay, that could actually What has he shown other than the physical tools? I think we know the physical tools exist. Is there anything besides that, I guess, that gives you hope in terms of seeing decision making, I'm just curious if there is something other than his physical tools seem good. We believe in the coach. Kyle Shanahan was really happy to have him as backup. Go.
All right, so the answer was going to be physical tools. That was going to be where I started. I'll give you this, that if you only watch Sam Darnold play in his last 7 games, so you only watch, and this is a bad way to do it, I understand that. You can't just say, hey, Chuck, remember all those bad games you played? Let's forget about those. Let's focus on the recent good ones. But if you only watch the performance when he was not with Matt Rule and not with Adam Gase, and he's only with Steve Wilkes and then Kyle Shanahan in that one start that he had, and when he came in against Baltimore, you would come away thinking this could be an average quarterback. There's some times where you can't believe what a bad decision he made, and there's also a lot of really good throws on that tape, and there's some complete games, and you can also see how the smarter coaches tried to protect him a little bit, tried to allow situations where he could scramble because he's very mobile, and it maybe was underutilized by his previous teams. You can also see where they went with some quick and easy stuff, where they went with a lot of play action and RPO stuff to make it a little bit easier for him, as opposed to let's just drop back on 3rd down and long all the time. And what Le'Veon Bell was saying on Twitter is absolutely right. Like, they ran a ton on 2nd and 10 when he was with the Jets. And I looked at this, his numbers when he was playing on 3rd down and long, he throws masses of interceptions on 3rd down and long, but not 3rd down and long. It's still above average,
right?
But it's not horrendous. Like, you can't believe how many interceptions and turnover-worthy plays. And his turnover-worthy plays were significantly reduced from his previous times in those last 7 games. Now, how much weight can we really put on a small sample? That I'm not sure. But it's when he had the better coaching and a better design for him that he played better. And if he was able to give 17 games, if they have to, of that type of play, you can be in the playoff hunt. But if it's the play that he was, in New York, then you're not. Then your season is going to be over pretty quickly. But I don't think that's the same player. I mean, that's 6 years removed from that and a lot of different circumstances, including the universe's greatest wide receiver, which cannot be understated. And I have to say, I've been chuckling a little bit. And look, I do think Jordan Love's going to be good. I think the Packers are good. So, but this idea that it's better to have a bunch of meh receivers than the greatest receiver, disagree. You know why? Because I've watched Justin Jefferson, and I don't think that it's wrong to look at what Nick Mullins did last year, and I know you're a fan of Nick Mullins, and say, if he just throws it to Justin Jefferson, you've got a chance to be in every game.
They almost beat the Lions, which were objectively a good team, trying to win the game without T.J. Hawkinson. I think they're missing somebody else too. I can't quite remember. That's not the one they should have won. The first one's the one they should have won.
And Hawkinson got hurt in the game.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
For half of the game, he's not
they
there.
could have easily won both of those games with literally just Nick Mullins. In Madden, he was hitting snap and he was pressing. He'd probably be the B receiver. He'd probably whatever the top route is in that game. He was just hitting the same button over and over again, and it almost worked. Like, it's I don't want to call it preposterous, because it's not preposterous to say, hey, if you just give the ball to the best player on the team, it will work really well. But it was just comical to watch. So yeah, no, that makes sense. I said he is probably the most interesting. You want to talk about an underdog story that's trying to come back from really, really struggling. Well, and I think we've said, I've believed this. I think you've talked about this. The NFL knows, like, there is a reason he has stayed in the league this long.
Right. Yeah.
It's not like he was in it. They just cut him off his rookie deal and someone said, all right, let's give this guy a try. No, he's stuck around. Teams have looked at him and said, there's something here. A lot of different football people. And of course, we spent the first bit saying maybe the first group of football people weren't the best football people, but they also probably knew a little something about football. So
Carolina gave up a 2nd-round pick for him.
Yeah.
And
if he's good enough for Kyle Shanahan,
right,
he has to be at least good enough to try for you, right?
And he beat out Trey Lance, who they traded everything for. And when you consider that they probably didn't want to do that, they probably didn't want to trade away their guy that they spent all those draft picks on, then it does kind of make sense. And I think they picked the perfect bridge quarterback, because if it doesn't work out, you didn't pay that much. But he is, if all the most intriguing players in this training camp, number 1 is McCarthy, number 2 is Sam Darnold, and you could switch them because adversity comes in many different ways. And for him, he's been through this whole journey. And if you're still here and still getting chances,
right,
that means people believe in your character as well. And I've gotten that sense. This has been a great pleasure, of course, to meet you in person. We had breakfast this morning. You crushed a giant burrito. We went to a great breakfast to a place here in Ann Arbor. It's beautiful. I've been driving around and stuff. Great place. The Paralympic Games are coming up. I'm nervous for you. I know that you're like, that's cool, man, whatever. But this is such an exciting time for you, headed back to Paris for another chance at gold. Where can people learn more about your sport? Where can they watch it? Let me know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the time. I'm glad you've enjoyed your time here in Michigan. I think folks can follow me and the team, Chuck Aoki, on pretty much every social platform. Instagram is probably the main one I use, along with Twitter, X, whatever it's called, and all those other things. You can also follow Team USA Wheelchair Rugby, Team USA. And then, the Paralympics kick. You're hearing a lot about the Olympics right now, which is fantastic. You should watch them. You should watch all of them. The Paralympics will start opening ceremonies August 28th. NBC, Peacock, all those platforms. You should be able to watch literally everything you could possibly want to watch. So make sure you check it out. It's going to be a very exciting time. Yeah.
Apparently your dog is a fan of Diet Dr. Pepper.
I saw that. She just took your bottle down.
Grab my bottle there. It's been so much fun following your journey. And there's a lot of times where I'm like that meme that's pointing at like when I see you on television, or you went to the White House. Yeah.
I've been to the White House a couple of times.
That's pretty cool. So Chuck Aoki, make sure you follow him on whatever social media platform you prefer. And again, just an honor to be here, to meet you in person, to do this show with you, and for you to give me an opportunity to write an article about you as well. The one of the world's largest Minnesota Vikings fan, a Minnesotan, going for greatness, going for gold. So thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for watching / listening to Purple Insider.
Thanks for having me.